A wealthy business owner enters his vehicle only to discover a young African-American child commanding him to remain silent. He never could have anticipated the reason behind her words. "Stay quiet and don't speak," the young voice pierced the parking lot stillness with razor-sharp clarity. Jonathan Miller, chief executive of Miller Industries, remained motionless with his keys in hand, still standing outside his dark BMW. The command had originated from within the vehicle itself. As his vision adapted to the shadowy interior, he spotted an African-American child, approximately 7 years old, crouched in the rear seat, her gaze filled with terror. "They are monitoring us," she murmured quietly, subtly indicating the office building behind him. "Your business associate and his fair-haired spouse. They mentioned you would arrive at this moment." At 52 years old, Jonathan had never envisioned that his existence would be transformed by an abandoned child. He had established Miller Industries from nothing, developing it into a tech enterprise worth $200 million. For 15 years, he had placed complete faith in his business partner Marcus Williams, and for 10 years, he had trusted his executive aide Diana Foster entirely. "How did you enter my vehicle?" he inquired softly, settling into the front seat without making abrupt gestures. "The cleaning woman left it unlocked when she departed. I concealed myself after witnessing them discussing you upstairs." Her young gaze sparkled with wisdom that contradicted her soiled clothing. "They mentioned that by tomorrow, you won't possess anything anymore." Jonathan's heart sank. Tomorrow marked the conference with Japanese financiers regarding a $400 million acquisition. A conference that Marcus and Diana had carefully arranged. "What additional information did you overhear?" he asked, appearing to adjust his mobile device while observing the lit windows on the 10th level. "That you lack intelligence and will sign documents without proper examination." The fair-haired woman chuckled and stated that the following day, "You'll need to seek new employment." The child withdrew further. "They spoke other cruel words about you, but my grandmother taught me that children shouldn't repeat offensive language." Jonathan experienced a blend of fury and something remarkably similar to admiration. This child had endangered her own well-being to alert a complete stranger about treachery. "What's your identity?" "Jasmine. And you're Jonathan Miller because I heard them mention it countless times." She paused. "Will you report me to the authorities now?" For the first time in weeks, Jonathan's smile was genuine. "No, Jasmine. Actually, you might have rescued everything I've constructed in my lifetime." Through the mirror, he observed the office illumination extinguishing sequentially. Marcus and Diana were likely descending now, certain that tomorrow would mark the day they finally eliminated Jonathan from the equation. What they remained unaware of was that a millionaire executive had just discovered the most improbable partner imaginable. And that Jasmine, unknowingly, had provided him with something more precious than any business conference. The opportunity to prepare. As he departed from the structure, Jonathan was already developing a strategy. But what would motivate a 7-year-old to risk everything to rescue a man she had never met? The solution to that inquiry would alter not only his retaliation, but his complete outlook on fairness. If this tale of treachery and vengeance moved you, make sure to follow the channel to discover how the individual they most undervalued would become the ideal instrument of their own destruction. Jonathan navigated through the city's peaceful streets, his mind analyzing Jasmine's statements like puzzle pieces that were finally beginning to connect. In the back seat, the girl stayed vigilant, her attention focused on the rearview mirrors. "Did they mention anything else?" he asked, maintaining a low voice. The fair-haired woman said, "You have faith in them like a submissive puppy." Jasmine showed disgust, "And that tomorrow you'll discover that small dogs occasionally attack their masters." The casual brutality of that statement struck Jonathan like a physical blow. 15 years of collaboration, 10 years of complete confidence in Diana, and they viewed him as a naive animal. "Where is your residence, Jasmine?" "No specific location." She responded with a matter-of-factness that devastated him. "Sometimes at the refuge, sometimes on the streets. It varies based on availability or whether the other children are being too bothersome." Jonathan halted at a red light and turned to face her directly. "Why did you inform me? You don't know me." Jasmine's eyes reflected mature understanding. "Because I understand what it feels like when people consider you invisible. They discussed you as if you were foolish, as if you were worthless." Her voice strengthened. "My grandmother always taught, when you witness someone being mistreated and you can assist, you assist because someday it might be you." The light changed to green, but Jonathan remained stationary for several moments, absorbing the humanity lesson he had just received from a 7-year-old. 20 minutes later, they sat in a vacant restaurant. Jasmine consumed a burger while Jonathan pretended to sip his lukewarm coffee. His mobile device vibrated. A text from Marcus: "Prepared for tomorrow, friend? The Japanese will appreciate our presentation. You'll retire wealthy." Jonathan displayed the screen to Jasmine, who chuckled quietly. "He's quite audacious, isn't he? He's deceiving you directly while maintaining a cheerful facade. Marcus has always behaved this way." Appealing, persuasive, Jonathan composed a cordial response, concealing the rage burning within him. "Diana, as well. She understands my agenda better than myself. She has authority over everything in the organization, and you're going to allow them to deceive you tomorrow." Jonathan smiled authentically for the first time. "No, Jasmine, but they cannot be aware that I know." Another message arrived, this time from Diana. "Jonathan, I've examined the final agreements. Everything is ideal for signing. Have confidence in me as you consistently have." The coldness of that message, masked as affection, made Jonathan's stomach turn. For 10 years, Diana had been his trusted advisor, the individual who managed his life, who knew his schedule, his access codes, his anxieties. "Do they possess information about you?" asked Jasmine, cleaning her sauce-covered fingers. "They know everything. Banking codes, business accounts, where I store crucial documents." The scale of the betrayal was beginning to register. "They've had years to organize. But you've accumulated years of information on them, too, correct?" Jonathan paused with a glass midway to his mouth. Jasmine was correct. 15 years of partnership, 10 years of executive support. He knew their secrets as thoroughly as they knew his. Marcus's clandestine meetings with rivals that he believed no one discovered. The irregular compensation system Diana had established for herself. The communications he had seen accidentally. The discussions he had overheard when they assumed he wasn't listening. "You possess a very intelligent mind, Jasmine. My grandmother used to say that when you possess nothing, you develop the ability to notice everything." She cleaned her hands with her napkin. "They consider you foolish, but you're not, are you?" Jonathan smiled, experiencing something he hadn't felt in years. Hope combined with resolve. "No, I'm not." His mobile device rang. Marcus, undoubtedly wanting to verify some final detail, solidify the ultimate trap. Jonathan responded in the most amiable voice he could produce. "Jonathan, I'm pleased you arrived. Diana and I are here completing the final arrangements. Are you resting adequately? Tomorrow will be significant." "I'm excellent, Marcus. I'm eager to see how everything develops." "It'll be flawless. Have confidence, we've handled everything. You simply need to appear and sign where Diana directs you." The arrogance in Marcus's voice was almost tangible. They genuinely believed they had reduced Jonathan to a marionette who would simply follow their script. After disconnecting, Jasmine observed him intently. "You're devising something, aren't you? Your expression appears different." Every word of disdain, every facade disguised as concern, every artificial smile from recent months began to make sense. Marcus and Diana hadn't merely violated his trust. They had completely misjudged his capacity to retaliate. What those two didn't realize was that years of establishing businesses had taught Jonathan a fundamental principle. The most effective strategies aren't loud, they're quiet. And while they prematurely celebrated their triumph, he was about to transform their arrogance into the very snare that would destroy them. The following morning, Jonathan awakened with mental clarity he hadn't experienced in months. Jasmine was sleeping on the living room sofa, covered in a blanket he had located in the closet. For a moment, he watched the child who had completely altered his life's direction in a single evening. His mobile device vibrated. A message from Diana at 6:15 a.m. "Good morning, supervisor. I've been at the workplace since 5 o'clock, preparing everything. The Japanese arrive at 2 o'clock this afternoon. You simply need to trust me and sign where I indicate as usual." Jonathan smiled with bitterness. The same Diana who worked overtime to ensure his destruction was pretending to be a dedicated assistant. "You're planning something," said Jasmine, stretching on the couch. "Your eyes are different. Like when my grandmother discovered someone was deceiving her." "I need your assistance, Jasmine. Could you return there today and listen to more of their discussions?" The girl sat up, suddenly serious. "That's risky." "I know. That's why I'm going to hire someone to protect you." Jonathan had already decided during his restless night. "I know a private investigator, Gabriel Torres. He used to work for me verifying backgrounds on major clients." Gabriel answered on the second ring, his voice thick and familiar. Jonathan, what a surprise. I thought you'd forgotten about me after they ended my contract last year. The irony wasn't lost on him. Gabriel had been dismissed by Marcus and Diana, who claimed financial constraints. Now Jonathan understood the actual reason. Gabriel was too intelligent and asked too many questions. Gabriel, I need you to understand that your dismissal wasn't my choice. Silence on the other end. Then a low, dry chuckle. I suspected as much. Marcus never appreciated investigators asking uncomfortable questions. What do you need? 2 hours later, Gabriel was sitting in Jonathan's kitchen, looking at Jasmine with a mixture of admiration and worry. He was a 45-year-old man, a former law enforcement officer, with scars on his hands and eyes that noticed everything. So, this young detective exposed a $200 million corporate conspiracy. Gabriel shook his head in amazement. Jasmine, you have a natural gift for this. My grandmother always said that when you possess nothing, you develop the ability to listen to everything, she replied, biting a piece of toast. Gabriel retrieved a tablet from his backpack. Jonathan, while Jasmine was protecting your company, I was investigating a few things independently. I never appreciated how I was terminated. His fingers moved across the screen, revealing spreadsheets and documents. Marcus and Diana aren't just traitors, they're criminals. The evidence was catastrophic. Suspicious transfers, fraudulent contracts, clients that existed only in documents. For 2 years, they had stolen more than $5 million from the company, creating a complex network of shell companies. The merger with the Japanese isn't about expansion, Gabriel explained. It's about money laundering. They need you to sign to legitimize the retroactive transfers. After that, they eliminate you and everything is clean. Jonathan felt cold anger rising in his chest. It wasn't just personal betrayal. It was organized crime. They stole from the company I built with my own hands, he muttered. They used my trust to finance their own corruption. Jasmine leaned forward. Now it becomes interesting. They consider you foolish, but you have an investigator and a clever girl on your side, and they're unaware of any of this. Jonathan's mobile device rang. Marcus, naturally. Partner. I hope you slept well. Diana and I have been here since early morning, finalizing the last details. The Japanese are going to be impressed with our organization. I'm certain they will, Jonathan replied, his voice carefully neutral. One more thing, Marcus continued, and Jonathan could hear the predatory smile in his voice. Diana suggested that you don't need to worry about reviewing the documents today. They're quite technical and you've always trusted our expertise, correct? Just appear and sign where she directs you to. The arrogance was sickening. They genuinely thought they could steal $200 million and still make him feel grateful for their assistance. After disconnecting, Gabriel watched Jonathan closely. You have 2 choices. Contact the police now and try to prove all this in court, risking that they escape on technicalities, or allow them to trap themselves. Attend the meeting, but not as the victim they expect. Attend as the predator they never imagined you could be. Jasmine clapped her hands excitedly. Like in a movie. You pretend you're going to sign, but you already know everything. Gabriel smiled for the first time since arriving. Exactly. And while they are celebrating prematurely, you expose them to the police, caught red-handed with undeniable evidence. His phone vibrated again. A message from Diana. Jonathan, you're the finest supervisor a woman could ask for. After today, I'm certain our partnership will continue forever. The hypocrisy of that message made Jonathan's stomach churn. Diana wasn't just stealing money. She was enjoying the humiliation she had planned for him. They consider me a sentimental fool, Jonathan said, putting away his phone. They consider my kindness weakness. Gabriel closed his tablet, his eyes hardened. Then it's time to demonstrate that kindness and strategic intelligence can be a lethal combination. Jasmine jumped from the couch, her eyes shining with determination. And I can assist. I can hide near the meeting room and record everything on your mobile phone. For a moment, Jonathan hesitated. She was a 7-year-old child. But then he remembered how she had risked everything to warn him about the betrayal. All right, he said finally. But Gabriel monitors you at all times. Gabriel nodded. It will be a pleasure to watch those 2 discover they've underestimated the wrong people. As they planned the final details, Jonathan felt something he hadn't felt in years. The excitement of the hunt. Marcus and Diana had spent 2 years building their perfect trap. What they didn't know was that in a few hours, that same trap would close on them with a force that would destroy not only their plans, but their entire lives. For 15 years, Jonathan had been the trusted partner, the understanding supervisor, the man who always saw the best in people. Today, they would discover that there is a much more dangerous side to kindness, the one that awakens when patience finally expires. The meeting was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but at 2:05, Marcus and Diana would discover that sometimes the silent lamb they thought they were leading to slaughter had developed sharp fangs. And today, finally, he would use them all. At 2 o'clock precisely, Jonathan entered the Miller Industries conference room as if it were just another ordinary workday. Marcus and Diana were already there, organizing stacks of documents with the precision of surgeons preparing for an operation. Jonathan. Marcus stood up with a brilliant smile, embracing him like a brother. Glad you're here. The Japanese are on their way and everything is perfect. Diana approached with a leather briefcase and a maternal smile. Boss, you just need to sign where I marked with yellow notes. Trust me, as you always have. Her voice carried that condescending assurance of someone who believes they are dealing with a child. Certainly, Jonathan replied calmly. But first, I wanted to show you something interesting I discovered last night. Gabriel Torres entered the room carrying a box of files, followed by 2 federal police investigators. Marcus and Diana exchanged quick glances, but kept their smiles. Gabriel. Marcus frowned. I thought you didn't work for us anymore. I do, Gabriel replied dryly. Only now I work for the actual owner of the company. Jonathan connected his laptop to the projector in the room. Marcus, Diana, do you remember this conversation? The screen illuminated with detailed spreadsheets showing bank transfers, dates, amounts. $5,300,000 embezzled in 2 years. Diana's smile faltered for the first time. Jonathan, what is this? Some kind of joke. Joke? Jonathan clicked to the next screen. Photographs appeared of Marcus entering and leaving offshore banks, signed documents, fake contracts. You created 17 shell companies to launder the money you stole from me. Marcus stood up abruptly, his mask of charm finally slipping. Where did you get this? This information is confidential. Confidential. Jonathan laughed softly. Marcus, do you really think I built a $200 million company without learning how to protect my own interests? Diana tried to maintain her composure, but her hands trembled as she held the folder. Jonathan, you're misunderstanding. These transactions have perfectly legal explanations. Gabriel interrupted, handing an envelope to each of the investigators. Here are the recordings of the conversations between the 2 of them planning the fraudulent merger. And here, he placed a second envelope on the table, are the confessions of 3 phantom clients you invented, all ready to testify in court. Marcus's face was red with anger and panic. You can't prove anything. These are just accusations. Jonathan smiled for the first time since entering the room. Marcus, do you remember Jasmine? Who the hell is Jasmine? The door opened and the 7-year-old girl entered accompanied by a social worker. Her eyes shone with determination as she walked up to the conference table. Hello, Mr. Marcus, she said in a sweet but firm voice. Remember me? I was hiding under your desk last night when you called Mr. Yamamoto, saying you were going to steal Mr. Jonathan's company. The silence in the room was deafening. Marcus opened and closed his mouth several times, unable to form words. Diana tried one last card, her voice high-pitched with desperation. A child? You're going to believe a street kid over respected professionals. Gabriel pulled out his phone and pressed play. Diana's voice echoed through the room with crystal clarity. Jonathan is a sentimental idiot. The day after tomorrow, he'll have to look for another job and we'll get everything. That clown will never know what hit him. Marcus's own voice followed on the recording. 15 years pretending to be friends with that imbecile. It'll be worth every second when I see his face when he finds out he's lost everything. Diana collapsed into her chair, her face white as a sheet. Marcus punched the table so hard that the documents flew off. You bastard. You set us up. Jonathan remained calm, his voice low but sharp. I didn't set you up, Marcus. You dug your own grave for 2 years. I just provided the shovels. One of the investigators approached. Marcus Williams and Diana Foster, you're under arrest for embezzlement, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit corporate fraud. As the handcuffs clicked around Marcus's wrists, he shouted, This won't stand. I'll destroy you. Jonathan stood up, adjusting his tie with his usual calm. Marcus, you've already tried to destroy me. The difference is that I'm better at it than you are. Diana cried silently as she was escorted out, but Jonathan felt no pity. He remembered all the times she had smiled in his face while stealing his money. All the affectionate messages as she planned his ruin. Jasmine approached him, tugging lightly on his hand. "Mr. Jonathan, are they really going to jail?" "Yes, Jasmine. For a long time." Gabriel closed his briefcase with satisfaction. "Jonathan, the Japanese cancelled the meeting when they heard about the investigation, but 3 other companies have already called interested in legitimate partnerships. And my company is stronger than ever without leeches sucking its resources. You'll find out how much it's really worth." As the room emptied, Jonathan looked out the window and saw the police van driving away. For 15 years, he had trusted Marcus blindly. For 10 years, he had treated Diana like family. They had turned his kindness into weakness, his trust into stupidity. Jasmine remained by his side, watching the same scene. "Mr. Jonathan, are you sad?" He looked at the girl who had saved everything he had built in his life. "No, Jasmine. For the first time in years, I'm at peace." "Why?" "Because I've learned that there are people in the world like you. People who do the right thing even when there's nothing in it for them." Outside, Marcus and Diana realized that their arrogance had cost them not only their careers, but their freedom. Inside the room, Jonathan realized that sometimes the greatest gift betrayal can give you is showing you who truly deserves your trust. But one question remained that would change everything. What makes a 7-year-old risk everything to save a stranger? The answer would reveal a connection that even Jonathan could not have imagined. 6 months later, Jonathan was in his new office, much larger than his previous one, watching the city bustle below from the 20th floor. Miller Industries had grown 40% since Marcus and Diana's arrest, finally free of the parasites that had been draining its resources. Gabriel knocked on the door, carrying a briefcase and smiling. "The latest news on our old friends. Marcus was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Diana got 8 years. They lost all their assets. Their homes were confiscated to compensate the company. The law firm that represented them refused to continue the case when they found out they tried to bribe witnesses." Jonathan nodded, feeling quiet satisfaction, but not vindictive. "And the other victims?" "We found 7 more businessmen they defrauded over the last 5 years. All are suing and recovering their losses. Marcus and Diana created a much bigger scheme than we imagined." Jasmine came running in, back from the private school Jonathan had enrolled her in. Her uniform was spotless, her new backpack on her back, her eyes shining with the same intelligence as always, but now nourished by education and security. "Mr. Jonathan, I got an A on my math test." She waved the paper proudly. "Congratulations, Jasmine. I knew you could do it." Gabriel smiled, watching the interaction. It's still surreal how a 7-year-old saved a $200 million company. "Actually," Jonathan said, sitting down to be at Jasmine's height, "there's something you both need to know. Something I found out a few weeks ago." He pulled out a folder of legal documents. "Jasmine, do you remember your grandmother's name?" "Of course. Josephine Miller." "Why?" Gabriel raised his eyebrows. "Miller, like." Jonathan opened the folder, revealing birth certificates, genealogical documents, old photos. "Josephine Miller was my cousin, my father's brother's daughter, whom the family lost contact with over 30 years ago." The silence in the room was absolute. Jasmine looked from the documents to Jonathan, processing the information. "That means we're real family," Jonathan said softly. "Your grandmother always talked about you to the social workers, about how smart and brave you were. When I started investigating after that night, all the pieces fell into place." Jasmine threw herself into his arms, tears streaming down her face. "I knew it. I knew you were different. Grandma always said that family takes care of family." Gabriel cleared his throat, clearly moved. "So when she warned you about the conspiracy?" "It was family protection instinct," Jonathan finished. "She didn't consciously know we were related, but something inside her recognized the connection." 3 months later, the official adoption ceremony was held in the same courthouse where Marcus and Diana had been convicted. Jasmine, now legally Jasmine Miller, wore a light blue dress and held Jonathan's hand tightly. The judge smiled as he signed the final documents. It's rare to see a story that begins with crime and ends with a family reunited. Later at the celebratory restaurant, Jasmine looked at Jonathan with that seriousness peculiar to children. "Mr. Jonathan, I mean, Dad, do you think Grandma knew this was going to happen?" Jonathan thought about the question, remembering how Jasmine had appeared in his life just when he needed her most. "I think your grandmother knew a lot more than we realize, and I think she would be very proud to see how you saved our family." On the first anniversary of Marcus and Diana's arrest, Jonathan received 2 letters in the same week. The first was from Marcus from prison, a pathetic attempt to apologize and suggest that it had all been a misunderstanding. The second was from Diana, also from prison, blaming Marcus for everything and trying to play the victim. Jonathan tore up both letters without finishing them. "They still don't understand," Jasmine said, looking at the pieces of paper in the trash. "It's not about forgiving or not forgiving. It's about moving forward and being better." The wisdom of that child still surprised Jonathan every day. 5 years later, Miller Industries had become one of the 100 largest technology companies in the country. Jonathan created a scholarship program for vulnerable children, funding education and housing for more than 200 children annually. Jasmine, now 12, was the honorary president of the program, personally choosing the beneficiaries and mentoring other young people who were going through similar difficulties to those she had faced. "Do you know what the best day of my life was?" Jasmine asked during the program's anniversary dinner. "What was it?" "The day I got in your car and decided to trust you. Because that day, I wasn't just saving your company, I was saving our family." Jonathan smiled, looking at the girl who had become his daughter and his greatest source of pride. Marcus and Diana had tried to destroy everything he had built. But they had inadvertently given him the greatest gift of his life. The chance to discover that family isn't just blood. It's also courage, loyalty, and unconditional love. He had learned that true revenge isn't destroying those who betray you. It's building something so beautiful and powerful that their betrayal becomes nothing more than a footnote in the story of your success. Marcus and Diana tried to steal his company, but ended up giving him much more than they could ever imagine. A daughter, a purpose, and proof that sometimes the universe uses the most unlikely people to give us exactly what we need. If this story of family, justice, and second chances touched your heart, subscribe to the channel for more stories that prove that true victory isn't about defeating enemies, but about discovering the allies who have always been by our side, just waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves.